So we're going to dive into a little bit of speculation today because there's been a lot of interesting reporting coming out, and I honestly feel like they're telegraphing to us exactly what to expect during the election of 2024, specifically regarding an internet blackout. And this is something you should pay attention to because even if you don't care about politics, this would affect you if the internet went down because of a political cycle. Now, I do want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them, I can get out here and keep training in order to be ready for whatever might happen during 2024, because I don't know, you tell me what you think might happen. But either way, reports of solar superstorms wiping out the internet for weeks or months at a time have become very frequent. They keep talking about it as if it's almost an inevitability at this point. And even today, at the recording of this video, December 1st, there is a solar storm hitting the Earth that has the danger of wiping out the radio and the internet, depending on your area and depending on where it hits. So this is continually being put out there. This is something that they are letting us know about on a regular basis. And now we even have the NOAA predicting a stronger peak of solar activity in 2024 than originally thought. Now, hold on a second. Why are you talking about solar storms? I thought you were talking about internet blackouts because of the election of 2024. I am. We're going to get to that here in just a second. Also, I just want to mention, I was recently nominated for the Gundies, and it would be really awesome if you guys are willing to help support me in that endeavor and help vote some weird fringe prepper guy like myself into the Gundy Awards as a possible winner. So I'll put a link down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment for that if you don't mind helping me out, because the Gundies is kind of like an awards show for gun tubers, and I didn't really know I was one until I found out. So I appreciate your help with that. Now, scientists are also predicting an upcoming solar maximum to peak between January and October of 2024. And originally it wasn't supposed to happen until 2025. So all these things are being rolled out in the sense of reporting regarding an internet blackout due to solar activity, something that's completely out of our control, right? So honestly, just because it might peak between January and October of 2024, and that would be, peak election season, as well as basically right up to the election, I would say that, it could possibly affect things even if there's nothing nefarious occurring. But let's talk about the nefarious part, because we're going on a little bit of a weirdo rant today, because I've been told many times, specifically by my wife, that I might be a weirdo. So what do I mean? Why am I trying to correlate this to an election situation regarding internet blackout, right? Like, why would this affect the 2024 election? Well, here's the thing. Governments around the world shut down the internet all of the time. Now, it's just not something that happens here in the US yet, but it is something that happens all of the time. Iran is one of the highest infractors of internet shutdowns against its people. It's usually because of unrest or local elections or whatever else they're trying to stifle. And African nations have this happen all of the time. In fact, African nations are generally the biggest culprits of shutting down the internet for their people. But there are 5 things that usually lead to an internet shutdown according to the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. And this is something you should definitely consider when we're thinking about speculating what could occur during this really, at least in my opinion, vitriolic election cycle we're all about to experience. But the 5 things they say create these scenarios where the election or where the internet gets shut down by these authoritarian governments is mass protests, which I think we all can assume we'll probably see some of, and we have been seeing frequently for quite a while now. Military ops or military coups, which a lot of speculation around military coups has been thrown around over the last, 3 or 4 years. We also have elections as one of the main reasons. Wow, I wonder why any authoritarian government would want to shut down any internet based on elections. And we also have communal violence and school exams, which, all right then. But here's the thing. I don't necessarily think our government's going to outwardly shut down the internet because of the 2024 election, but I do think they have a history of taking advantage of a crisis, right? Don't let a crisis go to waste, they say. Well, imagine you have all of this information and all this scientific data backing up the fact that the internet might be wiped out for weeks or months at a time. Who knows? It could take forever to get it back up and running, thanks to these solar storms that are completely out of our control. And we all know now that, peak solar storm season is next year in between January and October. So if in the middle of October a giant solar storm were to hit and suddenly the internet was out for weeks or even months at a time, we would all know exactly why it had happened and why the elections either had to be postponed or couldn't be properly counted because, internet stuff, everything's not working the way it's supposed to. Like I said, this is a speculatory video, but when I start seeing all this information come through, and I understand the nefarious aspects of our government, and I also know that the 2024 election cycle is going to be a very, let's just call it spicy one. Well, I wouldn't be surprised for a second if this was used to the advantage of those who want to remain in power. And we know, let's just be honest, the people who are currently in power that have their name on the front door, right? Those people are doing a really, really bad job. But we also know they're willing to do just about anything to maintain that power. And they're not going to just give it up because, somebody was like, well, we tried, but we didn't do very good. So I think we should hand the keys over to see if someone else does a better job. I think it's probably their turn because we just didn't really do great these last 4 years. I don't see that happening. Do you? I didn't think so. So just keep this in mind. I'm not saying this is going to happen. What I'm saying is that based on all this stuff that keeps coming out and all of this media push about the internet going down for weeks or months at a time and how it's all solar related and has nothing to do with authoritarian regimes. But then you have all this evidence of authoritarian regimes cutting the internet during election cycles all over the world because they don't want the people to get out of hand. And you know what lengths our own government's willing to go to in order to implement control. And the people who are in charge are, completely failing at their jobs and don't want to let them go. I would say that this is a reasonable expectation. And so let me know in the comments below what you think about this. But I just read a lot. I do a lot of research. I have to in order to run a channel like this one. And when I start seeing all this stuff, originally I'm like, oh, solar storms, CMEs, things that we should be concerned about because of what it could do to electronics or what it could do to just radio communications or who knows what else, right? And then I start reading all this stuff about internet shutdowns and internet blackouts happening in Eastern Europe due to, a conflict that's occurring there. But we also know that they've postponed elections. And then I start reading into how Iran has also done lots of internet blackout activities when it comes to anything revolving around unrest or the populace not being happy with their approach. My brain starts to work in this manner. So I assume I'm not alone. Let me know what you think about it. Tell me in the comments below, do you think this is a reasonable thing to consider? And at the bare minimum, it should just mean that you're trying to put plans into place for if this were to happen. If the internet went down for a month, what would you do? And when I say that, a lot of people are like, oh, we were fine before the internet. Well, not anymore. And when I say that, it's because a lot of things rely on the internet, such as financial transactions and such as people working their jobs. You know how many people work their job based on the internet at this point in time? Like, there's a lot of fallout that would occur because of the internet, not to mention logistics systems that rely on the internet for them to function properly, aka getting your groceries to the grocery store might not work the same way as it did before. There's a lot of considerations to make there. So I would just consider it a high possibility, more so than a probability or a likelihood. But because it's a high possibility, I would at least make some sort of contingency plans for it. And then I would keep my eyes out for anything else that starts to indicate whether or not that might happen. Because, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace already told us the 5 things that are required for an internet shutdown. And I think we can expect to see a lot of those here in 2024.